We were shooting in a small space with a limited amount of equipment, and it was just me. And this is how it went.
I've been cooking all of my life, there at the house. And then one day my wife asked me, if I would ever consider doing this professionally. And I considered it. And I thought, well, it's something that I could probably wrap my head around. And that's just what originally started Flavorsmith's Craft Barbecue.
Flavorsmiths is a new barbecue restaurant inside of Fayetteville Athletic Club, which is a hard concept to pull off because it's kind of a business inside of another business. And so the main challenge was kind of just letting everyone know that they're open, the location, and just kind of like a general brand story. They didn't have a website or content or any sort of like photos. The photos that they were using was just the photos of somebody's phone without lighting or anything. So pretty much we needed to build their full visual identity from the ground up. They just had a logo, which I actually really like. And because this was such a limited budget, this was just like a one-man band type of situation. I decided to separate the shooting days out into two. One day, which I did the product photography and the interview, and then another day that I came in and just basically captured B-roll of him going through the full process on a prep day. So like seasoning the meats and then putting it in the smoker and taking it out and just getting everything prepared.
We're going to cut a fancy commercial.
We started with the product photography, and for this I used a 3-camera setup. I used the R5 Mark II on the Canon EF 85mm 1.2L Mark I as like a profile shot. I used the R50 with the speed booster on the EF 1.8 50mm lens, the nifty 50, to get more of a 45-degree angle. And then overhead I had the M50 with the Viltrox 23mm 1.4. For lighting, I used the Aputure 600D with the Light Dome 3, the ADC with the Fresnel, and a couple of tube lights. The main thing that I ran into with both the product photography and the interview was that because where he smokes has translucent walls, it was pretty much impossible not to get like an exterior in the shot at some point. So I really had to like play with the levels throughout the day as the sun adjusted, which was pretty difficult. And I actually felt myself running into like needing more power, which we'll go through as we get to the interview. But even a lot of the photos for the product photography, I had to really manipulate them in post to get the kind of level I was looking for. My tubes don't put out near enough power, and the 600 just generally doesn't put out enough power to really compete with the sun in a wider frame. The interview was shot after the product photography, and so I was very tired. And so I probably wasn't thinking as clear as possible. But normally when I walk in, I try to just set my wide first. I knew that I couldn't shoot the wide towards the parking lot, and I had to shoot it that direction. I don't have a 24mm. I only have a 16, 35, 50, and 85. So I figured in such a small space, I would just use the 16 and then film an 8K and then be able to punch in, which hypothetically sounds good, but with that 16mm in such a wide space, it was so hard to get lights in or actually block enough of the side of the building to block the sun. So you can even see it in side of the frame. I put up negative fabric as much as possible and try to get the 600 as close as possible and even put the ADC over there. But I'm really just not getting enough power from the key side, which is, I really feel like a 1200 would have done it. And so I'm really trying to talk myself up the ledge of just getting a 1200. But I think the problem could have been solved if I would have just shot the wide shot on the 35 instead of the 16. But I just really wanted to be able to get the environment with such a small space. And so also, I think another option would be getting the light in closer to the 600, but I physically couldn't get it like inside the building. I tried for a second and then like I was taking the light dome off and everything and trying to get it in there, but it just didn't really fit. So I think maybe being able to rig it up better, like maybe hanging it from the ceiling or something. I'm not sure. I'm sure there was a smarter way to do it. Let me know if you know what that smarter way is in the comments, because I've thought about this quite a bit and I don't know how to get around it minus having just more power for such a wide shot. And then for an additional day, I came back and while he was basically going through the full process of like seasoning the meat and then putting it in the smoker and then getting it out and getting it ready for the next day's work, I came in and lit and just did some B-roll, which once again, I feel like I learned a lot. I felt like the lighting wasn't near as good on this day. And because I wasn't sure exactly how the process was going to go and how I would have to frame things, it's one of those things where it's like I had no exact idea of what the process of like preparing and smoking meat was going to be. So I didn't exactly know how to frame it, and I probably should have lit it a little different as well. I'm not the most experienced at a bunch of this stuff, especially product photography. So overall, this was just a huge opportunity to learn while being paid. And I feel like I learned a lot that we can all take on to our next projects. The main thing is that I needed a lot more light. And I don't just mean power, I mean like product and hero shots require a certain style of lighting, like very high key. And I just wasn't prepared for the amount of light, for the amount of directions I was going to need. So even like the setup, I said we'd start by 11 and we didn't get started till 1. And it's just little things like that that until you do it a couple times, you don't really know exactly how long everything's going to take and exactly how much power you're going to need per light. Another thing that I didn't think of was how hot it was going to be in there. 2 out of the 3 cameras started overheating throughout the day because the second day the smokers were on and it just got incredibly hot, which just makes me feel like I need to invest in the camera with a fan because the R5 Mark II is not the best in high heat.
We're gonna cut a fancy commercial.
I really like the way the project came out, and I'm super excited to work with them on more stuff. If you enjoyed this breakdown, be sure to subscribe and give it a like. And yeah, have a good day.